The backyard smelled like charcoal, smoke, and overcooked meat, the kind of smell people associate with comfort and family. Someone had strung cheap lights across the fence, and a playlist from 10 years ago played too loudly through a crackling speaker. Laughter rose and fell in waves, careless and easy. I stood near the edge of it all, holding a flimsy paper plate that bent under the weight of food I hadn't even tasted. I'd learned long ago that family BBQ weren't about eating. They were about performance, and I already knew my role. Adam, my older brother, the golden child, was center stage, spatula in one hand, beer in the other. He looked exactly like someone who had never doubted his place in the world. Confident posture, easy smile, the kind of presence that pulled people in without trying. So they finally promoted you? My uncle asked him. Adam laughed, shaking his head like he was embarrassed by success. Yeah, I mean, I worked hard, guess it paid off. Applause followed. Actual applause. Someone clapped him on the shoulder. Someone else raised a drink. My mother beamed like she'd personally earned the promotion for him. There he is, she said proudly. Always makes us proud. I swallowed. Adam had always made them proud. Straight A's, sports trophies, scholarships, jobs with titles people understood. He walked the path everyone respected, and he walked it loudly. I had taken side roads, quiet ones, the kind that didn't come with applause. Adam turned slightly, scanning the crowd, and then his eyes landed on me. There it was, that look, the one that meant I was about to be included, but not really. Oh, he said casually, gesturing with his beer. And my siblings here too. A few people looked over, some smiling politely, others with mild curiosity, like they were trying to remember my name. Still figuring things out, Adam added, his grin widening just a bit. A ripple of chuckles moved through the group. I forced a smile. I'd practiced it, the tight, lipped, agreeable one that said I'm in on the joke even when I wasn't. Adam stepped closer, warming to the attention. I mean, remember when they said they were gonna start that online business? Laughter. Or when they said they were going back to school? More laughter. Oh, and my favorite, he said, pausing for effect. When they said they'd move out by last year. The laughter grew louder, more confident. People leaned in, drinks sloshing, eyes bright with entertainment. Turns out, Adam continued, shrugging, motivation doesn't pay rent. That one landed hard. The sound hit my chest before my brain caught up. My face burned. I looked down at my plate, suddenly aware of how little space I took up, how easily I'd been reduced to a punchline. I glanced at my parents. My dad laughed, not loudly, but enough. My mom smiled, that uncomfortable smile she wore when she didn't want to disagree with Adam, but didn't want to look cruel either. She said nothing. That silence hurt more than the joke, because it meant agreement. Adam wasn't finished. He never knew when to stop, honestly. He said, pretending to think, I don't know how you mess up life when the blueprint is right there. He pointed at himself. Laughter exploded again. Something in my chest tightened, not anger, not yet. It was something heavier. Older, the familiar weight of being compared, measured, and found lacking in public. I thought about all the nights I'd worked late at jobs no one respected. The plans I'd abandoned because I couldn't afford to fail publicly. The dreams I kept quiet because they were always met with the same look. Why aren't you more like Adam? I wanted to disappear. I took a step back, hoping the crowd would lose interest, hoping the joke had run its course. That's when I noticed Grandpa. He sat a little apart from everyone else in his folding lawn chair, his cane resting against his knee. He wasn't laughing, he hadn't even smiled. His eyes were fixed on Adam, not angry, not amused, just sharp and steady. Grandpa had always been quiet, the kind of man who spoke only when it mattered. Growing up, I'd learned that if Grandpa was silent, he was paying attention. Adam raised his beer. Relax, he said, glancing at me. I'm just kidding, right? The crowd laughed again, softer this time. I nodded automatically, even though my throat felt tight. Yeah, I said, just kidding, but Grandpa's gaze didn't move. For the first time that afternoon, Adam's confidence flickered just for a second, like he'd felt something shift without knowing why. The grill crackled. Someone flipped a burger, the music kept playing, and somewhere in that backyard, beneath the laughter and smoke, a line was being drawn. I didn't know it yet, but this was the last time I'd be the joke. If humiliation had a sound, it would have been laughter echoing just a little too long after the joke was over. Even when the crowd drifted away from Adam and back toward their conversations, the words stayed with me, clinging like smoke to my clothes. I moved toward the side of the yard, pretending to check my phone, pretending I had somewhere else to be. In truth, I was replaying every moment of my life that had led to this one, every comparison that had taught my family exactly how to see me. Adam had been the son from the beginning. I'd been born into his orbit. When he was a kid, teachers called him gifted. When I struggled, they said I needed to apply myself. When he brought home trophies, they went into a glass cabinet in the living room. When I brought home effort, it disappeared into drawers no one opened. At school events, parents would smile and say, "Oh, you're Adam's sibling," as if that explained everything. At home, conversations always ended the same way. "Why can't you be more like your brother?" It wasn't shouted. It didn't need to be. It was said with disappointment, with concern, with that soft tone that somehow cut deeper than anger. I learned early that love came with conditions, and Adam met them effortlessly. I didn't. I tried, though. God, I tried. I followed paths that felt right to me, even when they didn't look impressive. I worked jobs that paid bills but didn't come with titles worth bragging about. I chased ideas instead of guarantees. Every time I stumbled, it became proof that everyone else had been right all along. Meanwhile, Adam climbed, promotions, praise, approval. Every success he had became another measurement I couldn't reach. The BBQ felt like the greatest hits of my failures, served with a side of laughter. I leaned against the fence, staring at the grass, when Grandpa's voice drifted through my thoughts not from today, but from years ago. Life isn't a race. He'd told me once when I was younger and crying after another comparison. It's a long walk. Some people sprint at the start and get tired. Some people learn how to keep going. At the time, I hadn't understood. I just knew he hadn't compared me to Adam, not even once. Grandpa was the only one who asked real questions. Not what are you doing now, but how are you holding up? He noticed when I was quiet, when I avoided eye contact. When I stayed late to help him with small things just to feel useful. Back at the BBQ, Adam was still basking in attention, though it had shifted. People talked to him about investments, travel, future plans. Big, shiny topics. He nodded along. Offering advice like wisdom was something he'd invented. I wondered if he ever felt the need to prove himself, or if the world had simply decided he was worth believing in. A sudden laugh cut through my thoughts. Adam again. "So yeah," he said loudly. "Some people just aren't built for responsibility." I flinched. No one looked at me directly this time, but I felt it anyway, the unspoken agreement, the shared understanding of who he meant. That's when something inside me cracked, not dramatically, not all at once, but enough to hurt. I wasn't angry at Adam. Not really. I was tired of shrinking to make others comfortable, tired of laughing along so no one felt awkward. Tired of being the example of what not to be. I looked over at Grandpa again. He was watching Adam now, not with irritation, but with disappointment. The kind that came from seeing someone misuse their advantages. His jaw was set, his fingers tapping lightly against the cane. Grandpa believed in effort over image, in kindness over status, in humility over applause. Everything Adam was turning into a joke. For the first time, I wondered if Grandpa had reached his limit. I stood there, surrounded by family, and realized something painful and freeing all at once. I had spent years waiting for validation from people who only valued one kind of success. No matter what I did, it would never be enough because it didn't look like Adam. That truth stung, but it also lifted a weight. I didn't need to defend myself. I didn't need to explain my choices. And I didn't need to compete in a game I never agreed to play. Adam's voice rose again, loud and careless. "I'm just saying." He laughed. "Some people need a little tough love." Grandpa shifted in his chair. The sound was subtle, barely noticeable, but it sliced through the noise in my head like a warning. I didn't know what Grandpa was about to say. I only knew this. The years of being second had taught me how to endure quietly. But Grandpa had taught me that silence didn't mean approval. And something told me his silence was about to end. The shift was so subtle that most people missed it at first. Grandpa didn't raise his voice, he didn't slam his cane or clear his throat for attention. He simply stood up. The scrape of his folding chair against the concrete patio was sharp and out of place, slicing through the laughter and music like a blade. Conversations faltered. A few heads turned. Adam was mid-sentence, smiling, basking, when he noticed the movement. "Grandpa," he said lightly, still expecting approval. "You good." Grandpa straightened slowly. Age had bent his back, but there was nothing weak about the way he stood. His eyes were steady, focused not on the crowd, but on Adam alone. "I'm fine," Grandpa said. His voice was calm. Almost gentle. That calm was unsettling. People quieted without realizing why. The grill crackled. A breeze stirred the paper plates on the table. Someone turned the music down a notch. Adam laughed, trying to keep control of the moment. "I was just messing around," he said, waving his hand. "You know how it is." Grandpa nodded once. "I do." He took a step forward, not toward Adam, toward the space between us all. "I've been listening," Grandpa said. "That's something I do more than talk." A few people shifted uncomfortably. My mother's smile faded. My father looked down at his drink. Adam's grin tightened. "Come on, Grandpa. It's a family BBQ." "Yes," Grandpa agreed. "It is." He paused, then looked directly at Adam. "And that's exactly why I'm speaking." The silence thickened. This wasn't the playful teasing everyone was used to. This was different. This was deliberate. Grandpa folded his hands over the top of his cane. "You've done well for yourself," he said. "You've worked hard. You've earned some of what you have." Adam relaxed a little, nodding. "Thanks, but," Grandpa continued, and the word landed heavy. "You've confused success with superiority." Adam blinked. A few people gasped quietly. Grandpa didn't stop. "You think standing higher gives you the right to step on someone else. It doesn't." Adam laughed nervously. "I'm not stepping on anyone. I'm joking." Grandpa tilted his head slightly. "Funny thing about jokes," he said, his voice still calm. "You only need them when you don't have character to show." The words hung in the air. No one laughed. Not a single sound followed. Not even a nervous chuckle. Adam's smile froze, halfway between confidence and disbelief. His mouth opened, then closed again. For the first time all afternoon, he didn't know what to say. Grandpa turned his gaze to the rest of the family. "I've watched both of these kids grow," he said. "One of them learned how to impress people. The other learned how to survive without applause." My chest tightened. Grandpa looked at me then, not with pity, not with sympathy, but with respect, and trust me, he said, only one of those lasts. The impact was immediate and devastating. Adam shifted his weight, suddenly aware of every eye in the yard. His beer lowered, his shoulders stiffened. My mother stared at Grandpa, stunned. My father rubbed his jaw, avoiding Adam's gaze. Conversations that had been easy and loud moments ago were now trapped in people's throats. Adam tried to recover. "Okay," he said, forcing a laugh. "That was a bit dramatic, don't you think?" Grandpa didn't react. "Drama," Grandpa replied, "is making someone's life a punchline to feel bigger." Adam's face flushed. "You're taking this too seriously." "No," Grandpa said, "you aren't taking it seriously enough." That was the moment something broke. Adam looked around, searching for support, for someone to laugh it off, to smooth it over. No one did. Not this time. The power he'd been riding all afternoon evaporated. Grandpa took a small step back, signaling he was done. "I won't stop you from being proud," he said, "but I will stop you from being cruel." He sat down again, slow and steady, as if nothing extraordinary had just happened. The world didn't end, but the backyard felt different. Adam stood there, exposed in a way he'd never been before. Not shouted down, not insulted, but clearly seen. I realized then that Grandpa hadn't defended me by attacking Adam. He'd done something far more effective. He'd told the truth, and truth, spoken calmly and publicly, had stripped Adam of the one thing he'd relied on his entire life, the belief that no one would ever challenge him. For the first time, Adam wasn't the golden child. He was just a man standing in silence, holding a joke that no longer belonged to him. The BBQ didn't end after Grandpa sat down, but it never really recovered either. Conversations restarted cautiously, like people were testing the ground after an earthquake. Voices stayed lower. Laughter sounded forced. Adam drifted toward the cooler, suddenly busy with nothing at all. I stayed where I was, unsure of what to do with the strange calm settling over me. I hadn't said a word, yet something inside me felt finished, complete, as if a long argument I'd been losing in my head for years had finally ended without my involvement. My mother approached first. She hesitated, eyes darting toward Adam before settling on me. He didn't mean it. She said softly, "You know how your brother jokes." I nodded out of habit, but for the first time I noticed something different in her expression, uncertainty. Not concern for Adam, for me, I know. I said simply. She opened her mouth, then closed it again, as if realizing how thin the excuse sounded out loud. She patted my arm awkwardly and walked away. My father came next, slower, more uncomfortable. "Your grandpa, he had a point," he said, staring at the ground. We might have laughed too much. It wasn't an apology, but it was closer than I'd ever heard. "I'm fine," I replied. And surprisingly, it was true. Across the yard, Adam stood alone. People spoke around him instead of to him. The spotlight had moved, not onto me, but away from him, and without it, he looked smaller, less certain. He caught me watching and looked away quickly. I felt no urge to confront him, no need to explain myself. No satisfaction in his discomfort. That surprised me. I'd imagined revenge before sharp words, dramatic exits, proving everyone wrong. But standing there, watching Adam sit with the weight of Grandpa's words, I realized something important. This was better, because it wasn't about me winning. It was about the truth finally being visible. As the sun dipped lower, Grandpa waved me over. I walked across the yard and sat beside him. He handed me a plate with food I hadn't noticed he'd saved. "You didn't eat," he said. "Didn't feel hungry." I replied. He nodded. "That happens when you're carrying too much." We sat in silence for a moment, watching the lights flicker on as evening settled in. "I hope I didn't embarrass you," Grandpa said. I turned to him, startled. "Embarrass me, no." He studied my face carefully. "I didn't do it for revenge," he added. "I did it because silence teaches the wrong lesson." I swallowed. "Thank you." Grandpa smiled faintly. "You don't need defending as much as you think. You've been standing on your own longer than anyone realizes." The words sank in slowly, deeply. When it was time to leave, people hugged me differently, softer, more aware. A few whispered apologies. Others simply smiled as if seeing me clearly for the first time. Adam avoided me until the very end. As I reached my car, he called my name. I turned. He stood a few feet away, hands shoved into his pockets, confidence stripped bare. "I didn't think it was a big deal," he said. "I was just joking." I looked at him, the golden child without his shine, the brother I'd spent years chasing and resenting. "I know," I said. "That's why it hurt." He nodded slowly, like the idea was new. "Grandpa didn't have to say all that." "No," I replied gently. But someone did. Adam didn't argue. He didn't apologize either, but he didn't joke again. That felt like enough. I drove away under a darkening sky, the echo of laughter finally fading behind me. For the first time in years, my mind was quiet. I realized then that sweet revenge doesn't always come with fireworks or final speeches. Sometimes it comes quietly, in a single line, from the right person, at the right moment. And sometimes the greatest victory is walking away knowing you were never the joke at all.